Welcome back to season 2 of I'd Quit But I'm Broke. We're here to give you more careers guidance. However, there have been a few changes this season, so I'd like to welcome my new co-host, Grace McIntosh.
Hello, it's good to be here.
So Grace, why don't you introduce yourself to the listeners?
Yes, I'm currently a media and performance student at the University of Salford, which means I live in rainy Manchester and currently very windy Manchester. And I will be graduating next year, so always keeping my options open, on the lookout for graduate schemes, graduate jobs. So I'm hoping speaking to our guests will help me on my journey as much as it will help all of you.
Yeah, I think that's me and you both. I think everyone could do with a bit of a hand at the minute. And we've got loads of exciting guests this season. They'll be giving you a range of different experiences from illustrations to data science and give you all the advice they can to help you get a job in their field.
Speaking of guests, this week we're going to be speaking to Lucy Mountain about her career from cupcake kiosk host to personal trainer and fitness app creator. So, Matt, fitness. Do you go to the gym?
I have a gym membership and I try my hardest to go. I wouldn't say I go to the gym a lot, but whenever I have some spare time, I try my best to go. What about you?
I don't have a gym membership, but tell myself every month I'm going to get one. But I do a little bit of yoga at home when I can. I used to go with some friends to a class, which I used to really enjoy. But I am kind of wanting to get into fitness. I do find it really difficult to get into. But yeah, that's kind of something I'm wanting to do sometime soon. So hopefully I can ask Lucy some questions about that.
See, I always find that the working out part isn't necessarily the hard part. It's more of the lifestyle choices like the dieting and stuff like that. So I'm really excited to hear kind of someone who knows what they're talking about and their opinions on it.
Yeah, definitely. I've read up and I know Lucy has an anti-diet ethos, which I think is going to suit me very well because I'm not very good at calorie counting. I've tried, but it's not for me.
So let's welcome on our first guest of the season, Lucy Mountain.
Hello.
Thanks for having me.
For anyone that doesn't know Lucy, do you want to just give our listeners a brief overview about you and your job?
So I'm Lucy. I am a content creator. I make content around fitness and health with an anti-diet approach. And I also founded a fitness app last year in April. So that's also what I do full time.
Wicked. Before we dive into your career, we're going to put you on the spot a little bit and we want to get to know you better. Okay. So we've got some icebreaker questions for you. So, what was the worst style choice you ever made?
Oh, style choice. Oh, do you know what? I had a real thing when I was younger for these like little, did you have like the pointed ballet pump era?
Oh, yeah.
Like the little, I had these gold ones. And whenever I look back on my Facebook pictures, I'm always wearing these very small pointed flat gold ballet pumps. My friends take the piss out of me all the time about it. So that was a bad time.
Yeah, I was part of that. I remember that, those days. And who was your childhood actor/actress crush?
Do you know what? My biggest crush that I have in mind was actually that guy from Five. I think he was called Abs.
Ah, yes.
He wasn't an actor, he was a singer, but I was like obsessed with him and I had like a poster of him on my wall. He's the only person who made it to my bedroom wall, so saying something.
So that's your childhood crush?
It's my childhood crush, yeah. Also, Adam Ricketts, the guy with the blonde hair, he was also a singer and he was in Coronation Street when he was older.
Oh.
Yeah.
But didn't make it to the wall.
He didn't make
Not
it to the
quite.
wall, no. So we'll go with Abs.
So I've got one. It's karaoke night. What are you singing?
Oh my God. Well, I did karaoke for my 30th
nice.
at New Year, and there was a video of me singing In the Shallows. You know, the song, is it called The Shallows?
Yeah, the Lady Gaga one.
The voice breaks at one point. So yeah, I'll show you the video after.
Yeah,
You can enjoy
I
it.
can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
If you were a wrestler, what would your entrance theme song be?
Entrance theme song. Maybe like something like Kanye West, like, is it Power? Maybe Power.
Yeah, that's a good
Like,
song. That's a get you pumped up kind of track.
Yes, or All of the Lights.
Oh, I like
Da,
that
da,
one.
da,
Could
da.
have some
Yeah.
With the
fire
lights
or
flashing.
smoke.
Yes,
Yeah.
fire and smoke, both of them, yeah.
That's wicked.
Yeah.
And lastly, what is one thing we don't know about you?
Oh, why do I think of something weird? I've just thought of something weird.
Say it.
I'm going to have to share it now. I have this thing where I like rub labels. It's like a weird habit. I've had it like all my life and everyone thinks it's really weird, but like clothing labels, I'll like rub the label together. It's like a comfort thing. Why that has come to mind, I mean, I still do it like every day and I've done it all my life. But there's a little token for you.
Is that like every time you put something on, you have to rub the label?
No, it's only certain labels. Oh. It's a very specific kind of label.
Is it the designer labels?
The designer label, yes, the designer ones. No, it's like they're like silky on the outside.
Yeah, I know which ones you mean. The long ones.
They're like folded. It's a whole thing. Yeah, it's a whole thing. So yeah, that's what I decided to share with you today.
And I'm glad you did.
Yeah, it's all coming out already.
So now we've gone through some of the icebreakers. What is the worst job you've ever had?
Well, I think amongst all of my part-time jobs I did at uni, before uni and post-uni, it has to be working in a cupcake, not shop, kiosk.
Right.
It was very similar to like a Lola's cupcake vibe, but not as bougie, basically.
So is that just a stall where you sell the cupcake?
It is a stall. It's a little stall in a supermarket, and So it's in Nottingham. I'm from Nottingham. So I studied in Nottingham, went to Nottingham Trent Uni, and when I graduated, thought I was gonna get my dream job in marketing, and I was like ready for it, and then basically got my degree and realized it's not that simple. So I was just scrambling to find a job and happened to stumble across the cupcake kiosk, and it was in a shopping centre. And anyone that's from Nottingham knows there are two main shopping centres. There's Broadmarsh Shopping Centre and there's Victoria Centre. And mine was in Broadmarsh, which was arguably the worst. Well, not even arguably, it is the worst one in Nottingham. Oh, no. And that's where my cupcake store was. So, yes.
So it's right in the hub. It's pretty busy.
In the hub, in the sun. Yeah, but it was also like in the walk-through bit. It wasn't even in like the fun part. It was in like the side bit where the train station people would walk through. No. So I'd just get like a flock of people just passing through. And also the pigeons. Anyone that's been into Nottingham as well knows there's a lot of pigeons. They would come in, they'd be around inside. It was a whole thing.
I'm sure they were attracted to your stand as well.
Yeah. It was. You can see it now, can't you?
Yeah, I'm picturing it in my head. What did you have to wear? Did you have a?
I had to wear. Well, obviously a hairnet for hygiene.
Yeah.
But for me, as like 21-year-old, like trying to look cool, that was not
no,
a vibe.
Not glam.
And I had to wear a white chef's hat, and also the white chef's thing. I mean, I didn't cook or make any of the cakes, but that was the aesthetic that I had to wear. So I'd wear that on top.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Is there a most embarrassing story you have of the job? Was there like a day all the pigeons came in, you had to deal with them?
I think like one thing that really like etches in my brain of being deeply embarrassing, it is my fault though, is that it is quite naughty, but it's fine. When the cupcakes went like off, you'd have to like check and see if they were stale and like squeeze them. And if I'm working with cupcakes all day, like I'm gonna want a cupcake. Yeah. So sometimes I would like squeeze them, and if they're like a little bit stale but still like doable, you're allowed to do a thing called like a taste test. So I used to like mark these cupcakes as like taste tested. And I'd eat these stale cookies. And one time I was like, I must have eaten like 3 on a shift. And I had to like duck down to eat them because I'm in the middle of this kiosk. And it's like 360 as well. It's like all around me. There's no like back. It's just in the middle. And I had to like keep bending down to eat this cake. And this woman was like waiting to be served. And I was like bending down eating this cake. And she called me out on it. She's like, you eat the cupcake? I was just like, oh my God. Because obviously you can't. It's like unhygienic too. I was deeply embarrassed. I was so ashamed. Obviously kept doing it. But
yeah, of course.
I don't blame you. I'd never stop taste testing it if I was in that position.
No, it was so difficult. Sometimes I'd mark them as like, yeah, it was stale.
Absolutely.
Even though it was perfectly fresh and squidgy. I just wanted one.
I do that, yeah. This cupcake needs testing.
Yeah, this delicious red velvet creamy cupcake needs testing.
Yeah.
Was it one of those jobs where you had a terrible boss, and if you could go back and say something to him or her, what would you say?
So my manager for the cupcake kiosk, he was absolutely delightful. He loved drag, so he was like a really interesting guy, and like he'd always talk about his like amazing nights out he'd go to, and I loved him. So I was very much like taken under his wing. But the owner of the company, he was a very sort of like sort of stoic man, very like unemotional. And I remember one time he came to visit me in the cupcake kiosk, and he's he's an interesting guy, but there's nothing I'd probably want to say to him. Although he did once say to me, you know what, the best piece of business advice I'll give you is start at the end and work your way back. And I thought, you know what? Maybe that's, I don't know why he's telling me at the time. I was just there in my little kiosk, but I was like, okay. But yeah, maybe that was quite solid advice from him. But yeah, I didn't see him often.
No.
Didn't see him very often at all.
Gosh, maybe he saw something you didn't, but back then.
I mean, the advice has stuck with you.
Yeah.
Well, actually, what's interesting is, even though it was deeply horrific as a job and I hated it, I did persuade him. So when I saw him and he came up to say hi and was doing his visits, I persuaded him at the time to let me control their Instagram for free. I was like begging him to like give me the job for free. But that, I think because I had that allowed me to like add something onto my CV in that moment. And I loved it. And there was no, especially like back then, there were no, like people didn't know that much about Instagram, and it was quite like a new thing still, so there was no like brief or like set goals. I could kind of do what I wanted with it. So that was definitely one thing I took away from the cupcake kiosk.
Yeah, that's a handy little skill as well that also came to serve you later on.
Exactly.
Did you manage to make cupcakes go viral?
No, sadly not. Do you know what I did do though? I did make one of those Instagram signs, you know, like with the Instagram phrase.
Oh yeah.
I actually, like, I remember this so well. Like I went to like the art shop in Nottingham and I like bought the frame and I bought the paints and I like, went home to make it myself just so I could put it on this Instagram that I was like doing for free. But I think there's a lot of dialogue around like, don't work for free, make sure that, you know, but I think sometimes, I don't think it's a black and white thing. I think sometimes it can actually help you, even if it's showing yourself, I can do this thing. And even if, you know, you're not receiving the money that maybe you wish you were at the time, it's not always completely redundant. So
yeah, broadened your skill set.
It did, yeah.
And I think doing that probably shows the cupcake industry wasn't for you.
No, it wasn't for me. No, sadly not.
What were you getting paid back then?
It was minimum wage. So whatever minimum wage was back then, was it £8 an hour maybe?
£8 sounds about right.
Was that? Yeah, maybe it was £8 an hour. So it was minimum wage. But the reason why I went with it was, I think my uni boyfriend at the time, he was also doing shift work there. So I joined because he was like, but he was working in a different kiosk to me, separate kiosk. But I remember thinking, they said there were loads of hours available. So in my head, I was just thinking, right, let's just get the hours in. Let's graft in this little kiosk and start making some money.
With you like living in Nottingham and being from there, did you often bump into people you knew, old teachers, friends?
Yeah, there were. Yeah, and like not only was it like my home friends, like people I went to school with, but also uni friends because I went to uni there. It was a constant stream of just people, and like my friends sort of, it was like funny. I was almost like a tourist attraction. My friends would be like, "Oh, let's go see Lucy in the kiosk today. She's working." Like I'm just standing there in my hat, like, "Hey guys,
let's go and see the cupcake power couple."
Yeah, exactly.
Could like do a trip.
God, to both ones. God.
So taking that all into account, the maybe working with your boyfriend the odd shift, your friends coming and embarrassing you, how much money would it take to get you to go back?
Well, it was £8 an hour then. I think at least £8.50 per hour. Yeah.
I thought you'd go higher. I really did.
No, it would have to be like £20 an hour at least. Come on.
Yeah, definitely.
30.
Working amongst pigeons.
Yes.
£20 an hour and 3 muffins a day.
Yeah.
Yes.
A cupcake allowance.
Honestly, just pay me in those red velvets. I would happily take that. Like a box of 12 a day.
Oh.
Fine.
I thought you were going to say like 20 a day, 50 a day.
Well, let's do it then.
Yeah.
50.
The more the merrier.
I changed my answer, 50.
Done deal. So if you were going to rate the job out of 5, 1 being you'd never do that job again, and 5 being it's okay for a student job, how would you rate it?
Well.
Bear in mind you were 21 at the time.
21 at the time. Do you know what? 3 or 4. Like, you know what? It was fine. it wasn't like I didn't cry. Like, I don't think I ever cried there, which I think is always a good sign.
That's a bonus.
Like, no tears in the workplace is always a good sign. But I think, like, for what it did the job. It tided me over. I don't regret. It's not like, oh, I wish I never did it. It's more just like, you know what? I took a few things from it. It wasn't a good time, but it wasn't in general because I was living with my parents again. I'd just finished uni and I wasn't living with my friends anymore. So it was that whole like spiral of things. Let's say a 3.5.
Nice.
That's not a bad rate.
No.
Yeah, it's not.
It could be a lot worse.
So we're moving into the section of the podcast now that we call listener questions. We ask students on our Instagram if they have any questions they'd like us to ask you.
Yes, and they didn't disappoint. So we've got one here from Julianne. Based on your experience, are there any jobs that are absolute no-goes for students?
I think the people really affect whether a job is good or bad.
Definitely.
I think you can have quite a diverse array of jobs, but if you work with good people, it's actually fine. So you almost have to just see the vibe, I think, and the energy of the people you're working for. Because you could go for something that you probably think, oh, I don't think I'm going to like it, even though it pays well, but you could get there and your manager's amazing and the people you like are great and you can just have a fun time. So I think it depends on the people.
Yeah. People make the job, don't they? Make or break the job.
Yes.
So you'd kind of say don't compromise your mental health for a student job.
Yes.
So I've got one from Emma here. How do you deal with putting on uni weight? And she says she loves you, by the way.
Oh, thank you. You know what's funny is like I remember when I was at uni especially, and your lifestyle changes and you are having a great time with your friends, you're drinking more, you're eating different food to maybe you'd eat at home. So like your body's going to change. But also the thing that no one talks about is like you go to uni when you're 18 years old. You stay there until you're in your early 20s. Your body is going to change, especially as a woman. So my best advice is, as long as mental health is important and getting outside is important and, not spending all day in the library or your room is important for your mental health. But if you are enjoying your time and these years with your friends, it's only a finite time as well. It's only 3 or 4 years. You have to let it go. And I know it's such hard advice, but enjoy those years. I wouldn't take a second back of my uni times. And I remember the only time I would take back of my uni experience is being obsessed with what my body looked like. When I was at uni, it was a trend to wear like the Topshop denim hot pants and all the little crop tops. And I still wore them because all my friends were, and it was a trend back then. But I still remember those times before nights out where I'd be like picking my body apart and, living in a house of 7 girls at 1.2, we were all doing the same thing. And it could be quite toxic. And looking back now, that's the only thing I would wish I didn't do. So you have to see beyond it and see beyond also your body just being any indicator of who you are or your worth. Yeah. It's so, and the thing is, it's so easy for me to sit here and say that in retrospect, but hopefully if you hear it from enough voices, it does eventually settle in. So
I think the same goes for guys as well. You can definitely overthink it, especially with like the university culture. If you're drinking 2-3 times a week, you're having a kebab here, a kebab there. Like your body might not look exactly how you want it to, but if you're enjoying yourself, you're enjoying yourself.
Exactly. And like I just think like uni is such a precious time. When I look back on my time on uni, I kind of do think about my calls to a degree, but I just think about the amazing silly memories that I had with my friends. Like
Definitely.
that's what lives on. So
It's irreplaceable. You're never going to go back to that stage. You just need to enjoy it, don't you?
Exactly.
We've got a question from Neve here. It says, hello, hi. What experiences and recommendations do you have for side hustles? Love a knob. Kiss.
Oh my God, I know. Love that. Yay. I think in terms of side hustle, I think something which you can do, I think Instagram is definitely my side hustle. So just to give context, after the cupcake shop kiosk, I got a job offer after a year for a marketing job in London, which is when I moved here. And Instagram was very much my side hustle. The biggest roadblock and the thing that actually got me to where I am doing the side hustle as my main hustle is not allowing anyone's negative thoughts affect what I'm doing. I was working in a gym and I can't tell you how many comments I would get, predominantly from male personal trainers, who would make me feel like what I was doing was silly. They would mock me posting on Instagram. They would make fun of like things I'd say online to like my community. You know, I had like 2,000 followers or whatever. But I'm so glad that I had the self-belief that it was going to work out. I always told myself that like things would work out. And obviously there's such like a huge layer of privilege that comes into that. But I do think when you have the option to have self-belief, it doesn't hurt to just believe in yourself, even when other people are casting their negativity. So I think anyone that wants to pursue a side hustle, just have that self-belief that it's not silly, and it can and probably will work out. That's what I would say on it.
That's so crazy to think, because now majority of PTs have Instagram accounts, you know, trying to grow it and grow their business with Instagram. So that's really crazy that you kind of got mocked for doing that.
Yeah, I know. And I think as well, like, that's one thing that stops, like, it's obviously other people's insecurities and they project that onto you, especially when you're in like maybe a more creative industry where it means you doing TikTok, or maybe it means you doing something with crafts or something like creative industries. I think people tend to view them as like more silly, especially even like with media degrees. You know, I used to get mocked for doing a media degree. Oh, that's a DOS. And it's like, I actually learned so many skills in my degree that I use still today.
Yeah.
So you've just got to have that self-belief.
Definitely, yeah.
So we've got one final question for you from Elf. It just says workout fasted or not. I think that means should you eat before working out or not?
So this is a huge topic in the fitness industry, and I think the old kind of mindset is that you should do fasted training. Somehow it's better for fat loss, but in the grand scheme of a day, it doesn't actually make a difference if your goal is something like fat loss. As you guys know, I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, is I'm an anti-diet personal trainer, so I don't give fat loss tips. But if that is from the lens of fat loss, then it doesn't actually matter. And I would say if you like eating before you train, so you train in the morning and that helps you have a better workout, do it. But also if you actually have a better workout not eating breakfast, that's also fine as well. But that's only from a perspective of like, just do whatever makes you, you know, feel best and perform best.
Yeah. Do you tend to eat before a workout or afterwards?
So at the moment, I'm training in the afternoon. So I'll have had my breakfast or probably my lunch as well. But when I'm training in the morning, I always have a protein shake and a banana before I train, because I couldn't do it without. Even if I'd had a huge meal the night before, it just doesn't work for me. So I've got to have something in. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it'd work for me either.
Yeah.
I need to, you know, the energy, like having a full stomach, I think it makes a big difference.
Yeah, and a coffee, get that caffeine down you.
Yeah, what about you?
Oh, yeah, I can't work out on an empty stomach at all.
No.
I'd get far too lightheaded.
Yeah.
Me and Grace were talking before you got here about how you started out wanting to be a food blogger and how it's evolved from there.
Yes, so at the very beginning of my again, if you scroll back, you'll see me doing these food posts and I'd make these recipes. But the problem was that because I was so entrenched in diet culture and low calorie this and low calorie that and no sugar, no whatever, like my recipes were so bad. I thought they looked good. They look terrible.
We were looking at some. I can't lie. They've got better, I suppose.
Did you see the chicken?
We saw the chicken.
Yeah. Someone asked me if it was raw. I'm like, it just wasn't seasoned, right?
No, yeah, it did look
wasn't seasoned.
on the blander side. But did you actually enjoy eating those sort of meals? Or did you feel you were having to put yourself in that diet culture and just get through it rather than enjoying food?
It was kind of a thing. And I think anyone that has been in diet culture, or maybe is in diet culture right now and doesn't want to be, I think you just tell yourself, this is what I need to eat. So it's not a thing of, oh my God, this is repulsive. It's more like, well, this is just how I'm living, because I want to eat clean and I want to lose weight and I want to have this, you know, aesthetic. So these are the things I should be eating. Therefore, I'm just going to eat it. That was my approach. It wasn't, I mean, to be fair, some of the meals on that TikTok reel thing that I shared, I think they were potentially disgusting. I think, like, upon reflection, if I had those meals now, I would not put them in my mouth. I'm sorry, I just wouldn't. But back then, I think I just thought, well, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is fitness. This is health. So I'm going to have this unseasoned chicken breast with, like, sweet potato and, you know, it's bad. But yeah, back then I definitely used to kid myself that I enjoyed it. You just read my captions, I'm like, guys, it doesn't look good, but, like, I promise you it tastes really nice. That was just me, like, kidding myself.
Tricking yourself into thinking it was nice.
Yeah.
And maybe was it that almost started your anti-diet kind of ethos, not really like enjoying the food and reflecting like, actually I didn't enjoy that.
Yeah, and like again, my friends will laugh at me because they know I'm not a very good cook. And in 2018, I released a cookbook, and the cookbook was almost just like I don't know, battling against all of the, like, the healthy cookbooks that were out there. And it was me rediscovering food that I enjoyed, and I wanted to share these recipes that I've been making. But even when I look back on the recipe book now, I mean, I would not publish a cookbook now, like, just with my skill set. And, like, back then it was something that I felt like I wanted to do, and I was glad I did it. It felt like a very, like, entrepreneurial thing for me to do as well. It was a very big thing. We self-published it. I sold the copies myself. I shot it. I designed it. I did all of it. But I look back on it, and there's still, like, some recipes in there which you can tell are just they are slightly diet culture-y because they're all high protein. I swap out, you know, full fat and full dairy for, like, low fat dairy and whatever. So there's still, like, an element of it. But it was definitely a point where when I was releasing it, I moved the calories from the pages on the recipes to the back, because I was starting to realize, actually, I don't think this calorie counting thing is that positive, and I don't think everyone should be doing it. So that was almost like an in-betweeny step almost, because now I have my fitness app on Nob's app. We don't have any calories available on the app at all. I have a sheet if someone wants to know, and for whatever reason they, you know, it may be appropriate, we can just send it to them. But I don't really talk about that unless they come to me, and also we don't have it available on the app for people to see.
So with this kind of organic growth, could you kind of talk us through how you went from a media degree into selling cupcakes, into personal training, and now, you know, kind of being your own boss, being a bit of an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I guess to kind of summarize it, was applying for jobs on LinkedIn whilst at the cupcake shop, and had the attitude of, I'm not going to leave here until I find something I'm really excited about. After a year, got the job, moved to London by myself. Was like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Moved to somewhere very obscure as well, but didn't really understand London at the time. And then worked in this job, in this role for, I want to say 6 years. So I worked, that's all I did. I just was doing this marketing job for the personal training studio. Rediscovered my love for fitness in a more healthy, balanced way. They really influenced me like that. Was doing my Instagram on the side as well, growing my Instagram. And then I started doing these posts that were going viral. They were like, they're infographics, which you see a lot on Instagram now, but back then it wasn't really as much of a thing. And every time I did one, they would go viral. So I was like, I'm going to keep doing this. So I was almost just focusing energy on what seems to be working for me on social media. And that allowed me to, like, build, I think I went from like 10K followers to 150 quite quickly in just like a small space of a few months. And then I was like, hang on a second, I feel like I'm onto something here. And then I just continued to grow, and it got to the point where I signed with an agency to do some brand stuff. I was earning the same amount of money on Instagram as I was in my full-time 5 days a week marketing job. And it wasn't a super high paid job, but when I was earning the same, I was like, you know what? I feel like I could go freelance now. So at the start of 2019, I went freelance. And by that point, I'd already done one workout guide this is before the app, but it was like a single product where I'd sold it on like a third party app. And that's kind of how it happened. And then went freelance in 2019, started doing more workout plans, knew that I wanted to do an app, and then eventually saved up enough money to do the app. And when I sold the first plan, I was always like, I kind of want an app. But so I always knew that I was going to save. The plan was always to save money, and I didn't take anything from the business for a very long time because I had my salary from my full-time job, which I was doing whilst growing my Instagram. So yeah, and then save that money, invest it in the app, and that's kind of where I'm at now. So yeah, and now it's just about like reinvesting into it. We spend quite a lot of money on development, so every month there's always something, even if it's a small tweak or small feature, there's always stuff going on because it's like a ever growing, ever evolving thing, and also things break sometimes and you're like, oh my god. So you always have to be on it with an app rather than that single guide product. But I love it, and I wouldn't change it because it's so bespoke to everything that I'm about now. So yeah.
So we want to come on to what you're doing now and kind of the fitness influencer side. For me, especially, obviously I'm speaking as a guy looking at, mostly male fitness tips and stuff like that. It's quite a split industry when it comes to social media. I think you kind of have people like yourself who, are preaching useful stuff and they're clearly trying to like make a difference and help people. And then you kind of have maybe the more show side of people, flogging like weight loss tea or stuff like that. So how do you kind of like differentiate yourself between the two sides?
So what's funny is if you scroll far enough back on my Instagram, you'll see me talking about a detox tea cleanse that I'm doing and all these results that I'm supposedly having. I mean, I used to kid myself into it. So I've been through that journey. I have been that person, and albeit back then I didn't have as many followers. I was just kind of doing it for my small community. But back then I was very fixated on counting calories, and I was very into little quick fixes and fad diets and 6-week shreds. And I've done all of that, and I almost had to do it. And I'm so grateful for those years. And someone once asked me, why don't you delete those old posts? And I'm like, no, because that is the journey. That's why I do what I do today. That's why I built my app in the way that I built it, because of all the personal experience that I went through back then, and also knowing that many can relate to it as well. So that's how I differentiate, how I have differentiated myself. And I've been both sides as well, which I think is it's quite helpful for me, because I am like my like perfect app user almost myself, because I've had the struggles, I've been there, I've done all of those stupid diets, egg diets and grapefruit diets and skinny shakes. I've done all those things. So I think it always helps when you have that layer of personal experience in what you're doing for work, so you know your customers really well.
Is that what you think like you enjoy the most about your job, kind of like building it around yourself?
Yeah, just building it for me. Just made the app for me. Yeah, do you know what? That is definitely one of the most rewarding things. So before the app existed, I just made a free Facebook group. So I basically was having all these conversations on my DMs with people. And it wasn't just about fitness and training. It was just like these funny conversations. And I feel so lucky that I feel like my community has the same sense of humor as me. And that's like the most precious thing to me about my community. They all laugh at the same things that I do, and it's just amazing. So I put everyone in a Facebook group together and ran that for maybe like a year and a half. This is in 2017. And then by the time it gotten like to, I don't know, 5,000 people in there, we were all talking about fitness, and I was giving advice on like, okay, why don't you try this person or this person's guide? And in the end, I was like, I'm just going to make one myself, because there's nothing out there that combines solid science-based training, like solid programs that do help you build muscle and do help you build strength, with a non-diet approach of no counting calories. It's either like you have to pick intuitive movement, just do what you feel like and move your body as you want, or you have to follow a 5-day training plan and count your calories and do body transformation pictures. There was no like middle ground between the two. So that's where I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do it. So that's the most rewarding thing. Designing it for my community that already existed is the best thing ever. And also bringing in our sense of humor to everything we do as well. Like in the app, in the descriptions of the recipes, I'll throw in little private jokes that we've talked about in the group, and just those little things just make it so bespoke to knobs. And you know, when people write questions and be like, I'm a knob, I'm like, there's that connection. I just know the kind of person that you are when you're a knob.
Yeah. Just for any listeners not aware of what we mean by knob, do you want to explain?
Yeah. So knob started as no, can you say no bullshit? Okay. So no bullshit was like what I used to say. I'd be like, oh, I'm no bullshit. That's what I used to call myself. I'm no bullshit. And then that changed to no BS. And then when we launched the Facebook group, it was Team No BS. And then eventually we just like closed the gap between no and BS and just made it knobs. Because people in the group started calling each other knobs. So everything's like homegrown, which is just the best. So I think people often will look and be like, oh, she's launched a fitness app and it's this and it's that. But they don't see the history of like where it started, my journey, the Facebook group where it started and how it evolved. So yeah, it is my favorite thing, the community.
So it kind of sounds to me that your career's kind of started organically and that you've maybe been winging it a bit. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's really bad to say, because when I started, even when I made an Instagram account, I didn't kind of think I'd be able to do it full time, and I didn't really, because it wasn't a thing really. There were a few like Australian fitness bloggers that had loads of followings and, you know, managed to make a career out of it. But back then it wasn't like, being a content creator wasn't really a thing. So everything kind of evolved as I did, which I think is, I don't know, I always knew that I would do something, and I always had the faith that I would, you know, maybe work for myself or have my own business. But everything that happened kind of happened in real time, and just accepting opportunities as they came to me and building like that is kind of how I like to work anyway. I still don't, I mean, I have a few goals that I want to, you know, achieve in the future, but I'm not the kind of person that knows exactly what I'm going to do and when I'm going to do it, and has a 5-year, 10-year time scale of it.
I think that's sometimes the best, isn't it? Just letting things fall into place and
yeah,
going with the flow kind of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of putting yourself in the places and amongst the people you find inspiring, people who are doing cool things and, you know, doing a job that you're actually really interested in. I think that will allow you to kind of doors will open for you, hopefully, and you can kind of be guided without having that set plan.
Yeah.
So when you started using marketing to kind of grow your own business, is there anything that surprised you? Anything like university didn't prepare you for?
Well, because I did, in my media degree at uni, I specialised in marketing. So that's one of the things that I really enjoyed. I think in terms of what they didn't prepare, I mean, I think the biggest thing is that social media plays such a huge role in marketing. And, you know, you can still argue that TV is relevant, and I think emails are super relevant still. And I think everyone should be doing emails if they're interested in marketing. I need to be doing them more. But I would say social media plays such a huge role, but it's changing all the time. So you just have to stay on board with it. Even if a new platform comes out and you're like, I kind of hate this, you kind of just have to do it. And I felt that way about TikTok for so long.
Yeah.
And now I'm enjoying it because I've let myself enjoy it rather than be against this new thing. So I think anyone that is working in marketing or has a business or a service they want to promote and need to do their own marketing, you just have to be in the places where people are going, even if it feels uncomfortable and you're like, oh, I don't like TikTok. Figure out a way you can do it that makes you enjoy it. Doesn't have to be like everyone else, but if you're there and you have a presence, great.
So when you became your own boss and were learning kind of on the job, is there anything that you just didn't know about that surprised you?
I think there's so many things. I mean, I would be like YouTubing how to do all kinds of stuff and whatever. I think I'm definitely the kind of person that wants to do everything myself, but I've had to outsource things, like getting someone to do the Knobs app socials was a huge thing for me. I just want to do it all, but I can't. I don't have time. So it was outsourcing it. That can only come though once you're making, you know, enough revenue to support that. But I think where you can, asking for help, outsourcing. And I would also say, like celebrating your own successes when you work for yourself or you have a side hustle that's going well or whatever, you forget to celebrate milestones. So one thing that I try and do is if we've had a particularly good month, like last month was really good for us. The other night I looked at the reports and I had a little glass of wine by myself and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to celebrate this and enjoy this. So I think don't forget to pat yourself on the back because you don't have a boss to do that for you. So celebrate those moments and those milestones, even if they feel small. Make sure you do. And it just creates that positive energy with yourself. That's a big thing I'm trying to do now.
Yeah. And with being freelance, working on your own, what other things would you say are really kind of good tips, good kind of work-life practices that you kind of have?
It gets so lonely. Like I launched the app in the pandemic and I lived by myself too. So I was working for myself, living by myself, and it got to the point where I was like, and also in lockdown. So it really got very dark at one time. But one of the things which I really value working for myself is a co-working space is obviously amazing. And if you can afford a membership at a co-working space, great. But for most people, that's not always accessible. So just going to a busy Starbucks, sitting down with a coffee and being there with your laptop, it gives you that feeling of being around people, even if you're not in an office, because if you're spending all day alone working on your own thing, it becomes very consuming. So I'd put yourself in busy cafes and busy work spots to kind of alleviate some of the loneliness of working for yourself. But hopefully you can grow it and you can have, you know, maybe a PA that works with you can talk to, or someone doing your socials or whatever. Hopefully that comes in time. So yeah.
I think those are some good tips.
Yeah.
I kind of want to ask like the key question of the day. You obviously have been very successful. Is there one key piece of advice you would give students hoping to get a job in your field? Be that running your own business or maybe being fitness influencer kind of thing?
I think there's one thing that I always say, and it's kind of got two sides. Now with social media and the like landscape, the more weird you can be, the better. If you think you're like a bit weird or you're a bit of a loser or you like weird things or, you know, you're a bit different to other people, like we all are, we're all different people, showcase that, because the more niche you can be, the better. Even like combining like two things which seem totally opposite. The Francis Bourgeois, is it Bourgeois?
I think so, yeah.
The train spotter guy, he's managed to combine train spotting whilst being like a really cool Gen Z guy that wears Gucci and North Face. So he's done that so well. And I think that's a really good example of someone who has combined two totally random things and just been themselves and done really well off it. So I think even if you feel like, oh, I don't know, everyone's doing this or whatever, do things your own way, combine two random interests that you have and just see what happens. And then what's my other point? I also think although it's great to see what's working for other people in your space, one of the best things I did for a while was actually mute people who are in my industry, who do the same thing as me. I muted them on social media for a little bit, especially when I was launching my app, because I didn't want what I was doing to be influenced by what everyone else is doing. Because even subconsciously, you can end up emulating what they're doing or how they've done it or what they're saying. Try and find your own voice. It's really hard on social media at the moment. I think sometimes it's very overwhelming with knowing what to say or what to post or how to say it. And I think we all end up saying the same things because of it, especially when you're in the fitness space. You just copy what other people are saying. And even with anti-diet, with me, you end up just saying what other anti-diet people are saying. So try and spend some time away from watching the big players in your space are saying, and just like sit down with a pen and paper and be like, what do I think today? I think that's a really good exercise. One thing I like to do if I'm thinking of content is get a coffee, sit down with my notepad and just be like, what are some thoughts that I've had around my space recently? And I'll write them down as a sentence and I'll make posts off the back of that, rather than scrolling, oh, what's this person saying today? Oh, what content have they made? Just separating yourself from it.
And that's a really good tip for all industries, isn't it? Just to kind of reconnect with your own thoughts and not kind of rely on others as much.
Yeah.
So Lucy, where can we find you?
So you can find me on Instagram at Lucy Mountain, also TikTok now. And then Knobs app, you can find on Instagram, just Knobs app, NOBS app. And then if you want to try Knobs app, we have a 7-day free trial at the moment. And we also have a 10% student discount too. So you can find all that detail on the website.
Perfect.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much again for coming on.
Yay, thank you guys.
Thanks.
Next week, we'll be talking to Ali Sevier, owner and founder of women's activewear, Avo Activewear.
She'll be discussing how she went from studying criminology to spotting a gap in the market and starting her own e-commerce business with little business experience. So make sure you press subscribe because you don't want to miss it.
And if you've enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to leave us a 5-star review on whatever platform you're watching or listening on. And make sure you follow us over on Instagram and TikTok at @StudentBeans.
See you next time.